My name is Mark Bragdon, and I am the media librarian at UNB Libraries. If you're watching and listening to this screencast video, it means that I've had a bad visit to the veterinarian, and I'm sending along this surrogate for the assignment that you have with Dr. Preston. So we're on the library's website, lib.unb.ca. And so the first box that you see here that you can search is called UNB WorldCat. What it enables you to do is search our book collections as well as a smattering of primarily academic articles available through UNB subscriptions. So for example, if I was going to put in a search such as horror films and let's say gender and hit the enter key, we get a list of results. A couple of things that are worth noting straight away. On the left here you can see that there are format qualifiers. It's telling us that there are 636 articles as well as 88 books, 55 of which are ebooks. And so you can scan through those. We can see that the second one, for example, is an ebook. And another thing that you can do on this page is sort by a number of criteria, but the most popular is probably newest first. So I click on that. And so we can see a number of things. I'm thinking probably your best bet as an initial pass through, if you haven't already started to delve into the literature, is to go through some of the books that may have to do with your particular topic. As I've seen on the assignment sheet, you're encouraged to read a certain quota of pages. In any case, a lot of these books will have chapters that could be useful. You can dive in, just take a look at a chapter, use the table of contents and the index to the book to navigate to parts that are interesting, and you will find that as you go through some that are on topic, there will be associated bibliographies attached. The books tend to be a little more of a survey or an elevated perspective or bird's eye view on a particular topic, and then they'll often suggest related readings that enable you to dive in both on the academic and popular front to get a sense, a more focused sense of a particular topic. So this can be quite useful if you haven't already tried it. We'll go back to the library website here, and I'll direct your attention, scrolling down, to these subject guides, one of which is film studies, as we see here near the top of the middle column of subject guides. So if I click on that link, it returns us, oh, I see I'm not logged out of this page, just forgive me for a second. This is the view that you will have. Sorry about that. The logout messed things up. We're back at lib.unb.ca. I click on film studies. Now it returns what it's referring to as top article and research databases here in the middle panel. And these are great ways to get into the journal article literature quickly. But I would encourage you to take a look at this film studies guide on the left. And this is a more detailed sort of guide to finding research articles as well as films. As we can see, it starts on the Find Films tab. Presumably you have that piece all sorted out. Find Books essentially mimics the UNB WorldCat experience that we get from the main web page, and it also includes some useful subject terms which are like canned searches of WorldCat. So I did this quickly. I see I'm missing my bracket. Sorry about that, but if I click on horror films here, for example, it runs a search of UNB WorldCat with the subject of horror films. And again, we could limit by books if we so chose, and we could sort by newest first if that was desirable. Going back to the guide, find articles here. So we can see I have a couple of links here that talk about a bit how you go from a general search question to a more focused one. I'm assuming that you've probably got that under control at this point, but if you haven't, you might want to take a look at myself and my process of working from a general topic to something that has a little bit more power in terms of focus. So back at the study guide here, there's a number of resources listed. Excuse me. The first two are pretty good for journal article literature, and Google Scholar is also quite good as well. Why don't we dive into Academic Search Premier first. You may be familiar with this interface on the EBSCO platform. We subscribe to a number of databases through EBSCO, one of which is Academic Search Premier. And if we wanted to, we could click on Choose Databases here and add Communication and Mass Media Complete to our search, which was one of the databases listed. I might even, listed on the previous page, I might even add PsycInfo here, which from a horror vantage point might prove to return some interesting results. So let's try horror films and repression. So a number of results come up. You'll see that there are some direct full text links, as well as these check for full text links, which it means that the actual article is not in this particular search database, but there's a pointer to it. And if we're lucky and we click on check for full text, it will confirm that we do actually have at UNB a subscription to Psychoanalytic Review. So if we click on that, if all goes well, it will take us directly to the article in question. Close a couple of windows here. Google Scholar can also be quite an excellent resource. If you click on Google Scholar through any of the links at the UNB Library's website, and at this point we clicked on it through the Film Studies Guide, it will authenticate you or directly link you to all the UNB subscriptions, which you wouldn't get if you just went to Google Scholar off campus and didn't otherwise find a means to make that link. If you're off campus and you clicked on the link we just clicked on from the Film Studies Guide, you will be invited to log in as a UNB or St. Thomas community member. But when you're on campus, it's a seamless transfer. So what else should we try here? We try slasher films and contemporary anxieties. And I'm just freewheeling topics here. A number of resources come up. If we wanted to specify a particular date range here, we could do so. Let's say we're looking from 2010 to 2019. Search that. Any one of these links is going to work. Sometimes all of them will. Sometimes just one is worth clicking on them all to see where you're going to get. The interesting thing about the articles, of course, is that they're going to focus on a particular topic. Oftentimes they're going to place that topic in, at least allude to that topic's place in a larger context, and often that context can be teased out via a scan. I'm just scrolling to the bottom here of the article's bibliography, and that can also provide pointers to useful materials, both popular and academic. So we can see there's a link here to the New York Times, and then we have some more academic types of linking, the Velvet Trap Journal, but IMDb, etc., etc. The other interesting thing from Google Scholar is that when you click on an article, you can kind of go back in time from when an article was published to see what resources contributed to an author's thinking. And then from the brief results of a particular item, you can click on the cited by, which moves you forward in time from when an article or a book or whatever resource here is listed was published, and retrieve those items that Google Scholar is aware cited that book or article since it was published. And so we've got another little list here of things coming up. And then you can even follow that path further ahead. We can see that the first one that comes up here, and they're often ranked in terms of how many sites they've received. This one that came out in 2014 was cited 259 times. This isn't something you want to just click on willy-nilly, but if you do see topically that there's some connection to what you're looking at and what you're researching, it might be worthwhile to give this a shot. Other thing I'd like to direct your attention to is dissertations and theses. This is a primarily North American-based database of primarily doctoral dissertations written on a plethora of subjects across academic disciplines, and it can be quite useful for a subject such as horror. If we put horror in Canadian literature, let's say. Resources come up. What I really like about this is that the full text is often directly available, and from one of these dissertations, one of the greatest uses of them to me is that a doctoral dissertation has a very substantial, scroll through here, very substantial literature review on a particular topic at hand that has gone through a fairly unforgiving committee to ensure that the candidate for the doctorate is able to demonstrate a thorough understanding of the literature that's contributed to their particular arguments. And what that can do for you is give you a leg up on what sources are deemed important or seminal or controversial or somehow or in some way or another has contributed to discussions and academic discourse and even popular discourse around a particular topic. So they can be pretty useful as well, and I'd highly recommend this as one of the initial starting points for the sort of research that you're embroiled in or embarking on, depending on where you're at with that. So some of these other resources I find, actually these ones right up until the very last one, Canadian Business and Current Affairs, are probably all fairly well indexed within Google Scholar itself. And then the CBCA reference is a database of Canadian published materials. So let's say we put in David Cronenberg. Can I really spell David Cronenberg? I guess I can. And items will come up, and then here on the left it'll give you a breakdown of what are scholarly journals from this 4,547 results, which are books, dissertations and theses, newspaper items, magazines. Maybe we want it to be a little bit more specific here. Maybe put in Scanners, a fairly early horror movie. Horror, sci-fi. And so this can be pretty useful. This one in particular for, I guess, movie reviews, as well as kind of popular cultural pieces, as well as the scholarly items. We have some encyclopedias as well. I'm just hitting another tab here on the Film Studies Guide. And the ones that are listed with the HillRef designation are found on the first floor of the Harriet Irving Library, and where you see simply hyperlinks like Cinema Studies, the Key Concepts, then that is an e-resource that's available online by clicking. And sometimes we have both, such as the Critical Dictionary of Film and Television Theory. It's worth, if you have the time, coming down to the library and going through the HillRef area of the PN 1995.9s to do with movies and film criticism and history and studies. I find that whenever I go through one of the reference sections on a particular topic, just by serendipity, there's all sorts of things that come up. And you may also want to go into the same area on the fourth floor of the Harriet Irving Library, these PN 1995.9s, if you aren't already directed to them from doing book searching at UNB WorldCat. And why don't I pull up a couple of floor plans for that. I'm going to go back to the main page of the library, click on floor plans here on the quick links. So the first floor, so you enter here at the bottom of the image, and there's the service desk to the left, the coffee shop to the right. If you just go past the stairwell and take a left down the corridor, you're going to see to your left as you're going along some pictures of a photographic exhibit from Renaissance College, and right about in the middle here you'll see date ranges on the stacks, and you're looking for the PN 1995.9s. You'll go down 2/3 of the way, and there's a number of resources there. I find that you can often look at the I think there's a multi-volume set of the history of American film, for example, and you go to scan the table of contents. You'll see things on horror or particular directors or auteurs like John Carpenter, for example, and so there can be some interesting things there as well. And I find that the encyclopedias are often pretty good for pointing you towards, in their bibliographies, some seminal works on given subjects. And if we go to the floor plan for the fourth floor, so let's say you went up the main stairwell that you'd see as you enter the library. You come up on the fourth floor. There's a little floor plan in there that you can take a look at to orient yourself, but essentially what you'd be doing is taking a hard left, another hard left, a hard right, and then about halfway down you'd see the date range for the PN 1995.9s, and it would take you down into this area to take a look at some books. If you're going to be just generally using Google for searching more popular types of content, so movie blogs or online magazines, Metacritic for relatively contemporary reviews, or IMDb, or whatever the case may be, just bear in mind that the best use of these materials is, in my opinion, indicators of what's the contemporary reception or the environment in which films or movements in films or trends are the ones that they inhabit. What are they coming out of? How have they been received in their own time, or what kind of revisions have been done in considering them moving forward from a more popular standpoint, less than or compared to an academic perspective. Those are certainly valid for example, if I think of a movie like The Exorcist, for example, that would have come out, I don't even remember, late 60s, early 70s, having a look at how it was received at the time, sort of shock that it gave the popular zeitgeist, can be useful for then questioning what the contemporary societal norms were at the time, the repressed and oppressed urges of humankind at any given point, and then taking a look later at how it's viewed through the lens of a lot more time having passed. That's a pretty quick overview of library services and library resources that can help with this subject. I would encourage you, if we go back to film studies here, if you're having difficulty finding material or honing in on a particular topic, or whatever the case may be that has to do with your literature searching around the assignment, which is a big part of it, obviously, you can contact me here, and my information is on the Film Studies Guide at mbragd@unb.ca, or shoot me a telephone call at 458-7741. Responding to student requests is a big part of my job across all the disciplines that I'm responsible for, so please don't hesitate to send me an email, and I'll do my best to get back to you as quickly as possible. Some people would prefer to meet one-on-one, and I do that quite a bit too, but again, I'm quite happy to just field requests as they come in by email. Best of luck with the assignment, and thanks to Dr. Preston for humoring me with this slapdash attempt at virtualizing the real Mark Bragdon. Take care.